Hello delegates, and welcome to our Crisis Delegate Training. My name is Apurva Desai, and I'm the Undersecretary General for all 5 of our Crisis Committees here at GLOMUN 2020. Now in this video, I'll be giving you guys a quick intro into Crisis Committees for both new and experienced delegates alike, as well as a brief overview into parliamentary procedure, and then transitioning into how specifically we're going to be running these committees through Gatherly. Now let's start with a brief introduction to the Crisis Committee. Crisis Committees are very different from traditional GA committees. They're a bit less formal and much more dynamic in the way that you as a delegate choose to interact with them. An average Crisis Committee is generally made up of 15 to 25 delegates, headed up by a chair as well as a crisis director, with crisis staff helping to run the backroom, which I'll get into later. Now, by far, the most exciting and appealing aspect of any crisis simulation are the crises themselves. Unlike other committees, Crisis moves forward chronologically in time, being constantly affected by other events outside of the committee, all of which are masterfully controlled by our amazing crisis staff. In sessions, debate may be interrupted with a special update given by either a member of your crisis staff or crisis director, with potential cataclysmic events like natural disasters or even nuclear miscalc occurring around you. That's why crisis delegates must be really quick on their feet, being able to pivot and transition from issue to issue in a timely manner, addressing everything that may appear in committee. When a particular crisis timeline or arc is completed, crisis can either choose to create a new one or develop the crisis further to keep delegates on their toes. These issues are often communicated in the form of a crisis update, wherein the crisis staff will come and inform the committee of any large shifts within the outside world. Moreover, if you decide to make a personal or joint personal directive public for the entire committee to hear, you can either call for a press release or communicate to help inform the committee of any larger actions that you may have taken. Now, most of the time within a crisis committee is going to be spent either in an unmoderated or moderated caucus, both of which are debate formats that not only fit ParlyPro, but are great for the smaller and faster pace of crisis committees. Now, briefly talking about the issue of notes. While for many this may not seem like a huge deal, in a crisis committee notes can make or break how the crisis turns out. Crisis notes are essentially a set of instructions and actions that you as a delegate wish to take, all of which must lie within your portfolio powers. These notes will then be sent to our crisis staff, where they may either approve of your actions, deny that action, or choose to manipulate it to help further the global arc of the crisis. Crisis notes can also help to further the committee's goals, or either further your whole agenda. Although for the most part, crisis notes are kept a secret, beware, as they may end up being leaked in a surprise press release later on in the conference. Now, notes cannot just be used to take any specific action, but can be used to ascertain any information about your character. Want to know how many troops you have at your disposal, and if you have any nuclear power? Send a note to Crisis and they'll let you know. Keep in mind here that for notes, specificity is key. Make sure to think about who you're writing to, what you want to accomplish, and when you need it done, as well as where you want it accomplished, why you need it accomplished, and how you intend to do it. Now, briefly talking about the issue of directives. Directives are to a crisis like a resolution is to a GA. There are 2 primary types of directives, either public or personal. Whereas personal directives require individual action and are kept in secrecy for the most part, public directives are actions taken by the entire committee as a whole, all of which must be voted on. In essence, it's simply a shorter version of a resolution, describing larger actions that you wish to take in comparison to a crisis note. These directives require a few preambulatory clauses, with the majority of the directive being operative clauses. Now, clauses can begin with action verbs instead of operative phrases, and delegates are encouraged to collaborate with others on directives and to take advantage of the different resources that each of our crisis characters has access to. Now on to discussing how parliamentary procedure will be implemented within our crisis committees. Now, you will start off like any other committee, by first motioning to open debate, and seeing as there's no speakers list, you would simply propose a moderated caucus. Pretty quickly, crisis staff will come to give you an update, and afterwards, they will give you a chance to ask any pertinent questions to help the committee determine the scope and severity of the situation. Now, following this, the chair will likely call for any points or motions as a result of the changing situation, which at that point, you will be asked to raise your placard, proposing and voting on any caucus, and from there, you will debate and discuss the situation that's facing the committee. Now, during moderated caucus or mods, you should be advancing your personal arc through directives and crisis notes, while also making speeches and formulating group directives that you would then pass these group directives around the committee to get signatories. Now, during unmods, you would meet with other delegates to form joint personal directives, taking action simply within your and your fellow delegates' resources, or to simply combine and strengthen your individual group directives. Now, once a directive has enough signatures, you'll be allowed to submit it into the dais. Now, once there are several directives in front of the dais, you can then motion to introduce your directive. You will then read the directive aloud prior to a committee vote on whether to pass that directive or not, with 2 potential speakers in proposition and 2 in opposition. Prior to the vote, if there are no speakers against, the directive will pass automatically, allowing you to more quickly move on to the next order of business. Now, briefly talking about how we will be running these on our global platform of choice, Gatherly. Now, within Gatherly, thanks to the huddle feature, wherein multiple people can essentially chat in a bubble and then leave within a virtual floor to go and interact with other delegates, it provides the perfect space for the crisis staff or backroom to be located. Now, the crisis backroom will always remain separate from the main room, and delegates should not go into the crisis room's allotted space within the Gatherly floor. Now, the backroom huddle should remain locked at all times. However, during times when the chair or other members of the dais wish to go into the backroom and communicate with crisis staff, delegates should note never to go into the crisis staff room. Now, regarding crisis notes and directives on Gatherly, seeing as they're a major part of the committee, Gatherly has allowed us to facilitate these as well, with delegates encouraged to use the private chat feature in order to communicate with one another, formulating blocks and ideas along the way. But do be mindful that chat will be monitored at all times, and if anything is found to be inappropriate or insensitive, it will be subject to removal from the conference or any other consequences deemed correct by your chair. Now, directives and crisis notes will be written on Google Docs and shared with the crisis staff and/or crisis director to make it easier for the chair and the dais to screen share any group directives during even voting or during debate. Press releases and communiques will also be sent out through the News tab on Gatherly, including smaller crisis updates and notes from the chair to return to the main committee nearing the end of any unmods. Now, more information regarding Gatherly and specifically how our crisis will be run on the platform can be found on the website at More information regarding Gatherly and specifically how our crisis will be run on the platform can be found on our website at www.glomun.org. Now, if you have any questions or concerns regarding the conference, preparation, or any other questions regarding crisis and how we will facilitate these amazing debates, feel free to reach out to me at crisis@glomun.org. Thank you, and we look forward to seeing you here at GLOMUN 2020.